Starting out here on the analytics page, this is just a high-level visual overview of all of the documents that have been imported into your database. So when we first started working with a database, it looks something like this, where it prompted you to import. This is just obviously not as nearly as nice of an analytics page because there's nothing in here. And then it prompts you to upload the files into the file room, which we've already done, go through that import process, which we've already done, which will extract the metadata, which you can then run searches on. And I think that this analytics tab can kind of help you be a little bit more hyper-targeted in your review process of what documents you want to review when. But overall, everything on this page is dynamic and clickable. So like we can see how many total documents we have in here, how many of those documents are emails, how many attachments there are to those emails, and then how many unique individual email threads we have. Again, if I wanted to just click into it, I could just jump right in, dive right into those emails. And I can see that all of these documents are emails. And whenever I click into the app, whether I'm just like navigating organically, clicking into things, clicking into folders, or running searches, it takes you to this looking page, which we call the grid view, where every column represents a metadata field, which is like that data about the data. And each row represents a unique individual document. In this case, they're all emails. But I want you to notice, as we're like playing around here today, I always like looking up here to see what it is that is up in the search bar, because next point will build out that search syntax for you to let you know what you're looking at. And in this case, we clicked into emails and it says we're looking at a document type being email, or the file extension being MSG or EML, which is going to include any documents, any emails that were attached to other emails. So just wanted to show you that you could click into really any one of those things in under your data, but you also have the ability to use the date range for those documents as kind of a filter for maybe what you are or aren't looking for. So you can customize this and say, if I run this and update and see that the vast majority of my documents are from 2000 to 2002, which is when maybe this case was taking place, I can go ahead and maybe customize to see based on month. And let's say that this case surrounds a specific point in time where an event took place. And let's say that that event transpired in October of 2001. And the judge has said, we are only interested in looking at the communications, what led up to the event 2 months prior and 2 months after, as like that is the time window for this case for what we should be looking at in discovery. And so you can go ahead and say, all right, here's the month of the incident, and it builds out that search syntax for you. Once you click into it, the document date range being from the beginning of October to the end of October. And I can go ahead and edit this search syntax to say, okay, let me go 2 months prior, August, to the end of December. And instead of having 5,708 results, we now have 14,071 results. I could take these metadata fields, these columns, I can move them around however I see fit, whatever is most important to me. We're also going to be able to edit this with the grid view. If you wanted to have specific metadata fields in here for specific reasons, like when you're going through production, you might want to see Bates numbers here, or different reasons there's a bunch of different metadata fields that you could use for different reasons, and you can change that up in the settings. But for this, like maybe we want to see these documents in chronological order. And so I just click on that header and it will organize these documents starting with the 1st of August and going through to the bottom, the 14,071st document will be the closest to 1231, if not 1231. And if I go reverse chronological order, there we go. So just depends on how you want to go about reviewing those documents. And the search syntax can be very helpful for building out searches for what it is that you want to see. So I could take these documents all at once via bulk actions, and to organize them in a place where I don't have to run this search again to find what I want to look for. I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to add these to a new folder and type it in, say like maybe name it document date range scope, and hit create. That will create the folder. And then I'm going to go ahead and group any email families and order them chronologically and group those families together. The reason I would group the email families together is just in case there was an email on August 1st of 2001 that it was sent on that date. So that's getting pulled in via this search syntax, but perhaps it had a few attachments where those documents were created prior to August 1st. It was created in July at some point in time, and they were attached as a part of that communication. I still want to know that that is part of that communication. And so I'm going to pull that in when I pull this in, and then go ahead and hit update, and it will tag those documents to that the folder that we just created, so that we can go back into our review. You'll find that folder and you can start going through that review process, and you can just look at those documents. You can also use the date range to find documents that don't fall within your date, within the scope of your discovery, and you can mark them as maybe non-responsive documents that you don't have to review, because really the purpose of Ediscovery is to help you minimize the number of times that you're going to have to review documents. Hopefully most of the documents you're only going to have to review once or no times, because you find out based on the metadata fields that this doesn't meet the scope of your discovery. You're like, whether it's the date range, whether it's who produced it, whether it doesn't hit on key terms, then you shouldn't have to review those documents to make it easier on you and charge your client less billable hours. Underneath here, we have what we call metrics or widgets. And essentially, this is just using different metadata fields to identify potentially relevant or irrelevant documents based on those metadata fields associated with those documents. So we can see here, the default one is file extension. This is telling us how many email files we have, URLs, Excels, Word documents. That can be helpful if you're looking for a specific type of document, but probably paired with other search syntax as well. But if you ever want to add a new one, you just simply click on this plus sign, and you can add a different metadata field. So one of the ones that I like to use as an example is this, let's go with domain. I like domain because let's assume that this enron.net is your firm name or your firm domain name. In all likelihood, these are communications that were collected between your client and yourself. And so these are something that you might want to review for attorney-client privilege. And so just like we did before, you click into it, it builds out that search syntax. We might want to take all of these documents that came from our firm domain, bulk action, create a new folder, and say review for attorney-client privilege. And these documents, you're going to be hyper-specific looking at them for attorney-client privilege. Not only are we going to include the email families, those attachments to the emails, we're also going to include the email chains communications going back and forth both ways. And then we'll go ahead and hit update. And then we have a folder with the documents that we are specifically reviewing for attorney-client privilege. let's do one more here. Click on another plus sign. And we could do author or document author. If there's like a specific person in this case that is important, that we look at their communications or things that they had created, maybe, so like, let's say Vince J. Kaminsky, I could click into here and do the same thing and maybe create a Vince Kaminsky folder where I would probably want to run more than just this search. I'd probably want to see documents that he authored, but maybe I also want to see communications that he sent via email or received via email, and just communications that have anything to do with him. So you might want to run additional searches, but tag those documents all in one place to a Vince Kaminsky folder. But one of the things I like to point out here is that you have this author. If you click in the see all, you depending on the platform that you are collecting from, he could have different usernames. So like Vince J. Kaminsky, but you'll see there's also a V. Kamens, which this could be the same person. So maybe we need to check those documents to see whether or not this is the same individual. But just something to keep an eye on, that even though you're like, oh, this is all the documents that were authored by Vince J. Kaminsky, there could be other usernames that are relevant to that individual as well. And then just under here, we have your discovery, which shows the relevancy status and privilege status and how far along we are in coding for it for the entire database. So I could just go ahead and jump right in and see by clicking either here or clicking into this portion of the donut chart, and it will take me to those documents that I have not yet reviewed for relevancy. Probably not the best way to go about it when I'm talking about trying to be more hyper targeted. It's not the best to just jump into any document that you haven't yet reviewed, but just wanted to show that you can do that. But the last thing I want to show for the analytics tab is that this doesn't have to be just specific to all of the documents in your entire database. You can also use this for a specific subset of documents. So you could say, I'm only interested in a specific folder. So like maybe we want to look at a specific folder and say, let's go with this all documents and data folder. I could copy this search syntax. And if I wanted to look at that folder specifically, I can see that there are 7,296 documents from Enron. And maybe I just want to look at those documents from that domain name. But then I could maybe take that search syntax and replug it in. And then look at only from schedule crawler. And then it builds out that search syntax. And then you're looking at only documents that have come from schedule crawler at enron.com within this specific folder. And so this can kind of help narrow down what it is that you're looking for and what documents you want to review when.